Thank you, everybody, joining us from around the world. It's really nice to see all these names coming in here. South Africa, Tanzania, Pakistan, really great. We know that we have around 40 countries with us today on this call. We're also live streaming on Facebook, so you can also check it out there. This session will be recorded, so you can also go back and listen to it. Half of those are joining our Alliance members and NGOs. The other half is other people. That's really great. It's journalists, health organizations, think tanks, not so many government officials, but there might be a few. But welcome all of you. So the Alliance is a network organization for NGOs, and Jacob is from yours, which is one of our founding members. And our crowd, our members are quite curious as to how they can accomplish our mission of safer roads around the world. And young people is a huge resource that we want to tap into, and we want to know much more about what you're up to and how we can engage and accomplish our joint mission. So today we're going to hear much more about that and how we how that can be done. So with us to hold our hand through this session is Jacob Smith from yours, and Jacob is going to moderate this session. And with us we have Amalia from Brazil. We have Danish from Switzerland, or from India, but sitting in Switzerland, he's with ILO. And then you have Ritu, who's also in India. She's actually sitting in India. So welcome, and please take it away, Jacob.
Awesome, thank you so much. I am so pleased to be able to help moderate this session. And as Lottie mentioned, we are here to really understand that road traffic injuries are the leading killer of young people worldwide. And we know that young people are often tokenized without meaningful engagement. So what we're here to do is to really share how NGOs can empower young people in building programs that improve their lives. And at yours, which is a global organization that acts to make roads safer for young people, we believe in empowering young people to advocate for road safety and sustainable mobility solutions. So before I start, I'd like to note that we will address, thank you for sending in your questions, and we'll be sure to address those as much as we can throughout this session. But please reach out to us afterwards if you have more. I'm pleased to introduce an incredible group of my comrades from India, Brazil, and Switzerland, who will be speaking on gender equality, climate change, and employment, and how some of those areas that their expertise in intersect with road safety. So to start off, Ritu is working with Restless Development as a youth accountability advocate, if you don't mind waving, precisely working on sexual violence against men and women in college, and has been positioned as a secretary of a youth-based NGO, All India Welfare Society. She's a member of the Youth Advisory Board with the Global Youth Coalition for Road Safety. Amalia Garces is a climate change activist from the south of Brazil, is part of Fridays for Futures movement, acting locally, nationally, and internationally. She focuses on fighting for climate and social movement, social justice, networking and connecting to strengthen the climate cause. And lastly, Danish is an intern with Decent Jobs for Youth Teams, which forms the secretariat of the Global Initiative on Decent Jobs for Youth, an ILO-led multi-stakeholder alliance to scale up on youth employment. He assists in designing and analyzing the global survey on youth and COVID-19. Thank you all for being a part of this wonderful panel. And so I'd like to start off, just jump right into it, and we can start with Ritu, and then go around the group, and sort of each of you just kind of share for a few minutes, what are some initial foundational principles that you have to share about youth participation and leadership?
Okay, so youth participation, as for me, is literally need of the hour today, because you need to channelize youth so that they can go in a particular way, and that would be beneficial for any country. We all know youth is the future of the country, and if they are being channelized properly, then they can create wonders, literally wonders. So if at an early age they can be included in some maybe political processes. They might not have good experience in working or any other field, but if they have been given an opportunity, then they can actually do wonders. And that is what happened with me. When I started working with restless development, at first, people of my age were not working that much. But then my organization gave me that opportunity to work for the cause, which always actually haunted me through my age. Like currently, I'm 25, and till 20, I had seen a lot of cases around, around my society, in my city, regarding the SDG 5, especially gender equality. And it's not uncommon to anyone. There is gender inequality existing all around the world. So that was the main subject where I always wanted to work. So when I started working with the organizations, like the Restless Development is a youth-led agency, and that helped me to work to to give me a systematic way on how to work, where to work, and how to raise your voice, and what can be a process to work. So that is what need of the hour. The organization, the political parties, or anyone should give a platform to the young people, so that they can actually speak. Because any policies which have been formulated or implemented, it is going to affect the young people at most stages. We are the one who will be affected by any policy, any decision, or anything that has which is happening around the world. So for me, youth participation is literally very important.
Awesome, thank you. Amelia, do you mind?
I actually agree with everything Ritu just said, and just to complement that, I think, it's most decisions that are being made now affect our futures more than they affect the futures of the decision makers. And so it is of utmost importance that we listen to, that they listen to us, and support us, and make sure our futures are secure, and not only our futures, but the next generations, and we are at a point where the youth is speaking loudly and telling the world what the real issues are and what we want to change. And so ensuring that the youth is participating is ensuring that the issues being discussed are present issues. And I just think it's very important and key to have a good platform and a good strategy overall in anything, not something in particular.
And Danish?
To add to what has been said is that it's very important to create those conditions which are necessary for youth participation and leadership to emerge. And as Ritu said, it's really important to start early and give opportunities to the youth, and to create those conditions to make sure that those opportunities are there. We have to sort of surmount this global youth employment challenge. And I'll share some data later on, but really the number of working poor, for example, the number of people who are not in education, employment, training, these are really staggering numbers. And if we want, proper public participation by the youth, then we have to give them decent jobs. We have to give them opportunities to express themselves politically, to have safe and secure livelihoods. So it's all about creating those conditions at a macro level.
No, I hear each of you, and I'm glad that you brought that up. So what I'm hearing is we must ensure that youth participation and leadership there's a platform that is provided for young people to actively engage in the decision-making process, but ensuring that the decisions that are being discussed are also present issues that are going to affect us today and tomorrow. And then as well as you said, Danish, making sure that we are actually looking holistically and creating conditions where young people can live and thrive and be a part of these decisions. Because without them having the right conditions to live and thrive, they won't necessarily be able to make the decisions that they can to live in a better world. So that's great. If you don't mind, Global Alliance, would you mind adding, we're gonna just have a few poll questions during this time for participants. So the question is, how do you engage currently with youth in planning, implementing, and evaluating? Awesome. I think we're waiting on the results to come up in just a few more minutes, but I'd like to, Amalia, you sort of mentioned about a platform, and I'd love to quickly hear about what does an actual platform look like in your perspective that NGOs can provide for young people to engage in these decision-making processes?
Well, I think a little bit following up with what Danish said, we need to make sure that, first of all, the youth are aware of global issues and that they're being taught stuff like this in school or in life, because I know from myself and, friends in the climate fight that we need to go out of our way to learn about climate change and other issues. And so, first of all, ensuring that we are aware of what's going on, and then giving us a platform to make decisions, to consult with us, and also a way in which we can speak up and, overall put pressure in institutions that we want to change and make sure that we know why we want them to change, So,
Awesome.
yeah.
Thank you for that. So going back to the poll, so the question, it's looks like that 40% engages with youth by sharing decision-making processes with young people. 48 is involved in informing and consulting with young people. 8% are involved in assigning tasks to young people. And about 4% of our audience currently does not yet engage with young people. So from any of the panelists, do you have any response to this or any additional comments? Feel free to chime in.
Yeah, I guess the most important one was inform and consult youth, because this is really important. Since youth are not that experienced that we can assign a task or just directly tell them this is what you need to do and this is how you take care of it. But if we inform them and consult them, then they can actually gain experience while working with the experienced people who are already working in country or for the welfare of society. So informing and consulting them is a really good option where youth can come up with their viewpoint and the policies or anything that would be implemented in a better way.
Awesome. Great. Danish, how have you experienced youth participation and leadership within your field, which is very unique, especially since you're working in this huge alliance, if you will. And what are some of those barriers that you faced when sort of trying to be involved in this within your field?
Okay, so I'll start with the sort of the macro barriers, because it allows me to elaborate on some of the statistics. So there are about 67.6 million people, young people who are currently unemployed. These are figures as of 2019. And of course, it's going to become much worse after the COVID-19 crisis. And this 13.6% of all young people that there are unemployed. 20%, this is 1/5 of them, are categorized as NEET, which I had mentioned earlier as not in employment, education, training. And what I'm describing right now are different symptoms of basically the global employment crisis that I want to put out there just so that we get an idea of how bad the situation is or how important it is that we get right to tackling it. So of the people that do have jobs, there are 429 million people who have jobs. 55 million or 13% are working in extreme poverty. So they don't have enough to eat despite working, which is a really staggering number and it should definitely not be the case. They live on below $1.9 per person per day. and 17%, which is 71 million, live under 3.2%, $2 per day. So basically, this is all to, I know, right? This is to get an idea of what are these basic things that we need to sort of tackle so that enough people have decent work, so that enough people can go ahead and raise their voice politically, etc. And the situation actually is not super great for people who are earning, because they're mostly concentrated in informal jobs, which are jobs where you don't have a contract. So that means that you are liable to get fired without notice. You don't have any social protection. The government cannot reach you. It makes it very hard. And these informality rates are really, really high, especially for women. And also in the neeth population, women are twice as likely to be neeth than men, twice as more likely to be neeth than men. So there's a gender angle to it as well. So basically, I go over these basic statistics just to say that these are, when I talk about creating conditions, these are the sort of things that we need to tackle, these conditions that we need to change so that youth can go ahead and participate fully and be leaders. And to end on a more inspiring note is that working for the Global Initiative has put me in touch with organizations that are completely youth-led, and these are organizations that are that participate in major consulting processes with our initiative. This is talk about ISEC, which is a global organization of youth leaders, European Youth Forum, United Nations, major group for the children and young. So, and I'll speak more about these experiences later, but these are the places where, for example, they have young leaders who guide us, which are the ILO, on a lot of these matters. And it's our job basically to listen to them because they are a key stakeholder in our alliance. So the kind of issues that they bring up, the kind of energy and the commitment that they bring to our work is something that is really valued, in some sort of youth leadership, first-hand example of youth leadership that I have seen in my work.
Awesome. I appreciate all of that. And wow, those stats are definitely scary, or however you'd like to take those. But I'm glad that you're doing the great work that you are doing. And employment is definitely a huge topic when we're discussing these topics of youth participation. So Ritu, do you mind sharing about how has youth participation impacted the decision-making process? And I'd love for any of the rest of the panelists to chime in on this question as well.
Can you please say it again?
How has youth participation impacted the decision-making process in your experience?
Youth participation is really important, because when I started working for the subject of sexual violence against men and women in colleges, the most important thing that I did, I constituted a team which were already, studying in graduation or in 12th standard or in like third year or second year. So for grabbing a knowledge from like down to earth knowledge or ground knowledge, you need young people who are already there. So the decision, the outcome becomes more authentic, because when you have actually gone to the field and you have contacted those people who are being affected by any of the situations or any of the, like, if I talk about myself, like I am expertise in SDG 5, gender inequality. So when you go to the ground and you consult young people who are living there and who feels every day, so that somewhere affects a lot the final outcome, like what you actually need to do. Like, because my research has been completed, and after doing all this, I will advocate for gender sensitization cells in colleges, which is really important. There are cells, gender sensitization cell, and in fact Indian government has passed a law to be enacted as soon as possible. But then if you talk to only authorities or faculties, you won't get anything. But when you talk to the young people who are studying, then you will get to know whether those gender sensitization cells are active or not. So the outcome is going to be very fruitful. I'm pretty sure of it, because I will start advocating for gender sensitization cells, so that whosoever feels or has been harassed or molested in any way, maybe a girl or maybe it a boy, he or she can actually go and consult someone, and the cell should be active. So youth participation actually made me realize that to actually to make some authentic change in your society, you need youth participation. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Anyone else like to add on?
Yeah, I'd like to say, like, in my field, youth participation in the last few years has been a game changer completely. I mean, we've seen since, I think, from 2 years and to now, millions of young people going out in the streets and protesting. And this really made a change in terms of how people perceived climate change and the climate crisis, and it made a lot more people find out about it and act on it. Not only that, but the youth now, I see in myself and friends that we are deciding to act. We're not waiting anymore for global leaders to act. We're actively making projects and making changes, and I think this participation in particular really shows how much the youth can contribute to society in many aspects, not only climate change, but social justice and everything, really. And I just think we're not waiting anymore, and we're still making a huge impact. And so I think that without youth, a lot of things would still be going on, but just much slower than they are right now.
Yeah, I really appreciate both of your comments in regards to that. What I'm hearing is, we always think of youth issues happening and individuals thinking of how can we combat these issues that are affecting young people. And we go out and reach consultants, we do our research, but the last thing that we ever do is actually speak to the young people that are being affected by these issues, and actually allow them to speak on their issues and engage them to be a part of the decisions, whether that is through policy or through programming. So I think that's a great point taken, is that in order for us to really shift the narrative, it's important for us to ensure that we are actually speaking to those being affected in a way that isn't tokenizing them, but a way that is approaching them to be of value to whatever initiative that you're working on. Secondly, yes, we do have all of these revolutionary protests happening today, and they've happened before, all across the world, regardless of what the topic is. It's focused on social justice and creating better, equitable worlds that we live in. And so young people are rising up even more today, and not waiting to get a letter to be a part of that decision-making table, if you will. They're creating their own tables, and they are speaking to policymakers and demanding change. And so I think that is a great point, and I'm glad you brought that up, because it's important to recognize how NGOs can really be cognizant of those things that are happening and ensure that they're moving forward as well. So there was a question that was brought up about how can we plan sustainable, low-cost projects with involvement of young fellows? And I'd love to hear, maybe we can start off with Dinesh on that, but I'd love to hear from anyone else if you'd like to chime in on that. So to repeat, how can we plan sustainable, low-cost projects with involvement of youth fellows?
I'll have to think a bit of that one. I was actually thinking of the one below that mentions something I said. So I'll come back to you on the question you're asking right now. And meanwhile, would love to hear from the other.
Awesome.
Okay, so shall I?
Yes, great.
Yeah, to make a low-cost budget project, because as I have said, I have an own youth-based NGO. And sometimes budget becomes a problem when you have goals, like very high goals, and you do not have a budget. So for a low cost budget, you need to precise the project as much as possible, as in the breakage of the project. where you want to bring a change. Sometimes bringing a change even to a single life matters a lot. So you don't have to think of a million people or hundreds of people to bring a change. Sometimes, bringing change in the people of like 10 people, you can actually bring a change, and that would be a welfare for the people and for the society as a whole. If one mindset can be changed, it matters a lot, and that is where we need to bring a change. So for a low cost budget project, and especially sustainable, break the project as much as possible to the ground level and think of where you can actually bring change, like by maybe some principles of peace building, or maybe bridging the gap between government and the common people. Because government sometimes, we always blame government, but sometimes government does a lot, but it's just that the policies has not been implemented properly, and that is where the lacuna is. Okay, so sometimes we can just work by bridging the gap between government and common people. So yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to chime in on that question? Cool. So yeah, I'll go to Danish to respond to that question regarding the COVID employment rate. Do you have that with you? Awesome.
Yeah, so one thing that's really important in this is the role of the government, specifically active labor market policies, which is the government using the power that is vested in it to make changes to make sure that sort of employers hold on to their employees. And we've seen that with so many stimulus packages being announced, but also at the sort of legal context in which all of this happens, such as what is the minimum social floor or social protection that through which the government can make sure that all of these people they can survive. What are the legal conditions under which workers are allowed to organize or have a voice in the say? Because typically organizations where the workers are collectivized and they can put forward their point of view to the employers, they see sort of less harsh conditions. So that is the main ways in which this can happen. So you would want a proactive government that boosts the economy right now through these stimulus packages, and you would want conditions where workers are able to organize. I know this is really hard to do, and in some cases that this is actively punished, but these are the main ways in which one can protect themselves or make sure that employers don't take advantage of the situation. Obviously, we can't just paint employers as black, because they also have a lot of their own struggles, but these are the main ways one can ensure that.
Awesome. I appreciate that. Another question that came in was, how can we engage more youth to road safety, specifically those who have less access to education and resources? I think this is a great question.
Sorry, I think, may I answer?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the first initiative has to be of taking information and some resources to the youth. And I think to engage them, you need to connect issues they are close with to road safety issues. And so you have to analyze their community, what they care about, and what their activities outside of school or wherever you're getting in contact with them, and trying to connect road safety with something they care about and that they will want to engage in, want to discuss. And I think bringing information and making this connection really is what's necessary to engage more youth.
Anyone else like to add?
Yeah, just to say that I agree very wholeheartedly with what Amalia said, and that the struggle for social justice, somewhere down the line, all of our different movements and all of our different issues, they merge into this, just world. And the sooner that we see this common road, the sooner we start walking it together and the sooner we get there. So I know it's a challenging thing in contexts where people are struggling with a lot of other things, where education is not really high, to sort of take all these ideas and put them into bite-sized pieces, as Amal said, and connect them. Amalia said, and connect them. But it's really the way forward to unite those struggles. And I really wholeheartedly support what she said.
That is awesome. Thank you. So we will add another poll question. So if you don't mind, Lottie and Global Alliance adding the poll question so the audience can see it. The question is, what do we need to increase our engagement with youth in a meaningful way? And the questions are resources, political will within the organization, and guidance and strategies on how to do things. So while we're waiting on that, Amalia, there's a question for you on how do we create the same urgency for road safety, which is the biggest killer of youth, that we see for climate change.
Well, again, what I think the best thing to do is connect the issues and, you know, maybe not precisely always climate change and road safety, but depending on the community where you are, connecting road safety to issues particular to that place. Because when we talk about climate change, we're talking about something that, although you can't really see it yet in like extreme right at your face ways, like you can ignore it if you really want to. It's something really huge that youth like me and other activists, it's hard for us to not do anything. And I don't know, I'm not sure how to create the same urgency. I really think connecting the issues is the best way, but we also have to consider that, though this is a bad thing, in my opinion, that the climate fight is very much so focused in Europe. And I believe that most road safety accidents are not in Europe. And I don't know, I'm not sure, you can correct me. But yeah, I think that if you approach them in a way that they see that this is as urgent as the climate crisis, as urgent as many other issues that they are concerned with, they will start being more engaged and being more concerned. And I think that will generate some urgency in youth participation.
Yeah, I hear you. I appreciate you answering that in a candid way, because I sort of appreciate what you brought up, the strategy of engaging young people. You can only engage young people by actually knowing what their life is about and what struggles that they're going through. And I think that will sort of help connect the issues that matter and how can we live in a better world. And I think with road traffic deaths, we've surpassed some numbers and they've gotten higher in the past few years, and we can look at climate change and not necessarily be able to see, like you said, the struggles that we're dealing with climate change, but we know that if we don't do something now, then it will be just as bad. So I appreciate you mentioning that. So I haven't seen the responses of the poll yet, so I'm not sure if we're able to get access to that right now. Perfect, awesome. So the question was, what do you need to increase your engagement with youth in a meaningful way? And 40% noted resources, 17% noted political will within the organization, and 43% was guidance and strategies on how to do things. So of course the highest was guidance and strategies on how to do things, and then followed by resources, followed by political will within the organization. So by looking at this in our audience, we do know that there are organizations who know and they have the political will to actively engage young people, but they're just lacking the guidance and strategies and some resources on how to properly do that. So if you're able to respond to that in any way, that would be wonderful.
I was actually a bit surprised by the results. I thought political will would be the highest because uh, that's the most important thing. And as Ritu said, that you can run a very cost-effective project, and you can do all that research and make sure that you just change the mindset of one person or 10 people, and that's important. And all I could see in that example was, okay, if an organization were to do that, they would have need to have so much political will that we want to make a change, that even if it's for one person or 10 people. So I think political will is important. But I think Ritu also wanted to say something.
Yeah, I would like to add on, as you said, I totally agree with you. And another thing that I would like to really add is that strategies and guidance is really important for youth. Because, nobody learns from childhood that you want to do this for this nation, you want to do that for this nation. All right. By the time we grow up and we learn what we need to do and what changes we actually want to bring around ourselves, or in fact in our own families, and for that guidance and strategies are really important and plays a vital role in shaping a career of young person, or shaping his or her mindset regarding any perception for any gender, in fact, or for the surroundings or for country. So guidance and strategies plays a very vital role.
Awesome, thank you for that. There's a question on what do you mean by tokenizing youth? How do we avoid it and do better? And then additionally, what are strategies and advice on guidance to ensure that we're not tokenizing young people? So would anyone like to share your experience maybe, or just, an example of what tokenizing young people may be?
Maybe I can say something. Is What is the opposite of tokenization is embeddedness. So if you dig up any sort of soil, you see that there are different things in it, like if you dig up dirt, there are pebbles embedded in it. So really you cannot separate the two, or it would take a long time to do so. And that is what I mean by youth engagement should be embedded within the organization. Everything that you do should have an element of youth consultation, should be meaningful. People that you consult should have some degree of decision making power. Many times there should be youth working for your own organization as well. And I'll mention some things about how you can be a good employer for youth towards the end, but this is what I meant by embeddedness. And maybe if I can give an example of our own survey, we had an idea, we designed it, we drafted it. There were two young people in the team. One of them was me, and there were these other people who have been working for the ILO. But then at the same time, then it went to field colleagues. They took a look. Some of them were young people. Then it went to all of our partners, and the ones that I mentioned, the United Nations Major Group for Children and Young, they commented on it. They had some very strong points that we had not thought of, and obviously that perspective was a bit different than ours because of who they are and that they're a youth-led organization. So you can see that at every stage in the process, it's something that is sort of embedded and not simply a tick mark. So that would what I see as the opposite of tokenism.
No, that is wonderful, a perfect example, and I love the imagery with that, because you're right. I mean, for example, when we look at road safety and young people being affected by on their journey to and from school, we know what we need to change, and we know the countermeasures that are needed. When we go into that school, we may not in that community, but it's important that we don't just involve those young people in figuring out what the needs are, and then 6 months later, the infrastructure improvements are done and we're like, hey, we finished it. We should make sure that they're actively engaged in not only sharing what their experience is and the issues that are going on their journey to and from school, but actually being able to learn and have those shared decisions between young people and adults. And that reminds me of a ladder that at yours we worked through, and the ladder starts off at non-participation, which is manipulation, decoration, and tokenism. And then really the active change that is needed is consulting, adult-initiated shared decisions, youth initiating and leading, and then young people and adults sharing decision-making. So I think that those are some of the elements that I'm hearing as each of you speak with your experience. So I'd like to go to everyone on this question. What are some, what can NGOs and community-based organizations do to develop sustainable and long-lasting strategies to involve young people? So I definitely have heard that it's important to embed them in our programming, but are there other specific strategies that you've used in your experience that are sustainable and long-lasting to involve young people?
I would like to add on for that. Follow-up is really important. You cannot just plan a project for 6 months or a year and you think that it will bring some change, and especially sustainable change. You need a follow-up. Even if you are working for 1 month, then keep a follow-up that, it is actually bringing a change. You cannot bring a change in 6 months or 8 months. We have seen history. We all know what the history has caused to us. A hell lot of years have been here to bring such a equal society where we are actually working for the welfare of society, and especially for gender equality or any other reducing inequality or any other SDGs. So it takes a lot of time. So follow up is really important. And then the second and the most important thing is it should be as precise and to the point. Like basically, what do you want and how it can be done? Where do you want to bring a change? Like if someone comes and ask me when I started working, I was like, I want to work for sexual violence. Where? To what age group? Which should be the target area? By keeping some certain things in our mind, we can actually bring a change. Might not be to the whole nation, but at least to a small area. So you need to decide area, target audience, and in fact, sexual violence, but then to whom? To men, to female, to transgender, or to any other, So you need to decide where you want to work, how you want to work, and whether it will actually bring a change in society or not, whether it's going to be qualitative or quantitative. So, all these precises matters a lot when you actually want to bring a change.
Jacob, you're on mute.
Thank you. Awesome. Amalia, do you have anything to add, or Denise? Great. So yes, I will definitely, I think we have another question. I'll just read it. All countries are unique and have different needs. How do we support youth road safety organizations in low and middle income countries to mobilize support for innovative ways to tackling road safety programming amidst COVID-19?
Can I start? Okay, Danish wants to answer. You please go ahead.
I actually was waiting for you, please.
Yeah. So, even if it is any country, low income country, middle income country, or high income country, there are schools where children are studying and studying and learning every day. If you want to actually bring a change in society or regarding road safety or any other social issue, you need to work with the seeds of the society. And the children who are in school, maybe in first standard, second standard, sixth, any standard, they are the seeds of the society. So if you want to work for road safety, what are the important factors when you will come out of school and you will drive a car or any vehicle? So you need to tell them. They are the people who can actually bring some kind of initiative ideas or unique ideas to the society. So schools are there in almost every country or every nation, in spite of low income or middle income. So for road safety, you need to build change in the seeds. As I said, the children who are studying in school. And for that, you can take help from students who are learning or studying in colleges. But the main people are going to be the seeds. So, yeah.
I'd also like...
Oh, go ahead.
Just to say that all of us live in very different contexts, and even if you go in big countries, from city to city, from state to state, from one group of villages to the next, things completely change, right? But what you will always find is there will be some civil society organizations, some local organizations that will be doing their work. Now, you will have to, of course, take some time to learn the context, to map out the area, to find the kind of organizations that you work with, where do your policies align. But it's always good to, even before you have consultations with your beneficiaries, to have consultations with people who worked in that area for a long time and belong to that area and in your field, and then actually the beneficiaries who also belong to that area.
Thank you for that. Amalia, so we had a question that come in. I thought you may be great at answering it, is regarding social media. So and that's how we met. How can you engage youth on social media and make it fun and learning at the same time, and also keep this continuous youth engagement?
Well, I'm afraid I'm going to repeat myself, but I honestly think the best way is, you know, connecting to issues that the youth is passionate about, and then, you know, talking about those issues along with the thing you want to discuss. And, you know, youth right now, everyone is on social media, basically. And so by creating, you know, challenges, lives with people that they might want to see lives of, you know, and with Fridays for Future, for example, we switched our protests to online protests. And so every single Friday we post something about it. And that's, you know, one way that we keep people engaged. We always have something one day of the week. I've seen many different organizations and, you know, schools doing challenges online that the students find fun, and then they go after information and they, you know, research on their own and complete the challenges. And in many different aspects, like in intellectual aspects, in like physical education challenges, you get like through social media, if you connect to anything that people are interested, they will end up engaging. And because everything is so easily shared all around, if you get one person to engage and their followers are similar to them, their followers are going to engage in what they posted about. And so it's really, you know, finding something that the youth care about and that they're going to want to post, want to research more. I don't know if that answered, but
Yeah, I hope it answered. It answered, you know, I was wondering as well. So I'm glad you're able to answer that. And I think that is a great point taken, because oftentimes we look at social media as simply a channel where we can just disseminate information. And those are actually individual lives and where people connect with each other. So it's important that if you're going to engage young people on social media, that you understand that this is their platform. And they want to make sure that their issues are brought up just as much as you're trying to get an issue for them to even understand that is an issue to them. So yeah, I appreciate that. And I'd love to hear from anyone else in regards to if there's been strategies that you've used in your organization to engage young people through social media, or actually any other digital platform, I think, or digital strategy.
Yeah. So for engaging more and more young people, I would like to quote example from yours, where youth consultation was being a important part for bringing a change in road safety. All right. So you, the youth consultation, when you know go and ask people and ask them to join and consult what changes you want to bring, then we will take up your perspectives to the to authorize people who are responsible for bringing a change. So there becomes a chain, and that is what Amalia said. Chain is really important. So for engaging more and more young people, you need to create challenges online, like a youth consultation was there, posting about it, more and more people sharing, resharing, what is it all about. So like, for example, amidst COVID-19, so at my own organization, what we started by distributing food to the people who are majorly street vendors and who couldn't manage square meal a day. So we started posting about it, and literally it was crossing 800 views, or 500 reposting, because it was kind of a zeal in young people that they are uh, feeding people every day. So that kind of challenges youth, like you or we all are young people, we get enthralled by challenges. Okay, now we need to do this. If we will do this, this will bring a change in society, and that is what social media can help. Challenges on platforms and resharing, posting about it, this is what it is, tagging authorized people who are responsible, so that can actually have a meaningful youth engagement.
Yeah, thank you for that. Is there anyone else that wants to respond to that or add more? Yeah, I really think that the consulting is a great example that yours has been a part of, these youth consultations that are going on across the world, because it's directly allowing young people to take ownership first and enable their exercise of leadership with peer-to-peer leadership. And then secondly, allowing them to really evaluate what are the community issues that are happening, what are each of us living in, and then thirdly, how can we make sure that other folks are aware of these issues that we're facing, and understand how can we mobilize to change this. So I think that's a perfect example, because that sort of hits a lot of the points that each of you have been making about how to meaningfully engage young people and actually make policies and services that are relevant to young people. And so I think that's incredible. And so I know we only have about 5 minutes, well, actually about 2 or 3 minutes left. So if each of you could go around, I'd love to just hear some last thoughts on what you'd like our audience to know. Any last words? These are NGOs and organizations who are really valuing young people already, but they're really trying to find the strategies and resources to do that.
Okay, so can I start again?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So like very soon, as soon as this situations become normal in our nation, so we'll start at my organization, we'll start with the building project, where we will involve more and more young people, and we will teach them the principles of peace building, how it is, when you should do it, and like inserting in their minds how you can be a part of a community. Everyone wants to be have a belonging to a certain community, that I am a part of this, I am part of that. So that is what we are planning, peace building project, and bridging the gap between government and common people.
Thank you.
That's it.
Yeah, I want to share a little about a project I've been working on, because I talked before about how some youth are taking matters into their own hands, and that's precisely what me and other activists have done in the last few months. And so we started a project called SOS Amazonia, and we're collecting money to help indigenous communities of the Amazon with COVID-19. So both urban and rural communities, and we're sending food and health resources, equipment, and also telemedicine equipment. And it's a project basically planned by youth, and it's a really great project that we're doing. We've reached 20% of our goal, and that's 200,000 reais. And everything is being planned along with NGOs, and it's a really, really cool project to see the youth acting. It has both national Brazilian activists and international, and it's just a great example because we did the research, we had meetings every single day of the week, we plan the text, we plan the media strategy, and it's a youth project, but its impact is much bigger than just youth, I believe. Yeah, that's the link.
Awesome. Denise, would you like to go?
Yeah, I'd just like to, for everyone here, for all the employers and the NGOs, I'd just like to point out that there are some basic things you can do, because we've talked about how to engage with youth externally, but also about youth within your own organization, right? So just because of long school to work transitions and the inability to find a job, when youth to get a job, it's really important that their sort of learning aspects, as Ritu mentioned, are taken into account, that you give them the space to sort of make mistakes and figure out what they want. And also that they're not stuck doing repetitive sort of tasks, or tasks that no one else wants to do. Their employment should have some basic career progression opportunities, or if you're not able to provide that, then learning goals. And then so these are just basic things taken into account. And something that I feel is important is that we talked about how so many young people are actually working in the informal sector. So when you're an employer, you're not only an employer to, the people who do your projects, who write your reports, but you're also an employer to the people who who provide security. You're an employer to all the janitors, and you should be a good employer to people on those sections as well, because that is where the real problem lies, and that is where the problem of informality lies, where the problem of not having collective bargaining and social dialogue lies. So those are important aspects.
Awesome. Thank you all. I appreciate the last thoughts and reflections. So just to wrap up, it's really important that you not only engage young people, but engagement is just not assigning one task, but it's involving them by providing the resources for them to actively engage, consulting with them, and then at the end of the day, the participation should be increasing as your program continues. Secondly, peer-to-peer education. We should be ensuring that we're involving young people in the issues that matter to them. And then thirdly, actually making SDGs a reality. So not only looking at road safety as one issue, but understanding that encompasses health determinants, that encompasses climate change, that encompasses gender equity, and even employment on getting to and from work. So thank you to the panelists. Each of you are wonderful. I'm so glad to be able to connect with you and learn a lot. And I'll pass it over to Lottie.
Thank you. Thank you, all of you. This was really good. I think you can also see from the questions that there's a lot of really will, and people really want to engage with young people. And I think you gave us a number of very, very important points that we need to think about, because you have probably experienced that. You're sort of called in and you have to be front figures, but not real engagement. And I think there was some really good points here around making it relevant, and not just asking young people to engage, but make sure that it's relevant and it reflects your reality, something that you care about, and link it to social justice. That the engagement has to be meaningful, it has to be embedded into programming, it has to be part of a strategy. You cannot just say, well, we do youth participation if you once in a while invite someone to make a speech in a session that you're running. Really rethink your strategies and rethink how this can be done, because there's a humongous resource out there, as you can see from this wonderful panel. So good luck, all of you. Really, really good luck, all of you NGOs. You can see how much resources there are here. So please engage with them. I'm really sure that yours and your team would be love to have emails or connect with you guys and get some more advice, or maybe linking up with people in your country. So you're very welcome to write to us at the Alliance. I'm sure you're also welcome to write to directly to yours. Whatever you want to do, we need to work together much better, and you got the recipe here. So good luck, and thank you very much, Rito, Danish, Jacob, and Amalia for joining us today. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank
so
you.
much for having us.
Bye. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.